Good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us here on News 12. I'm Mariah Davis.
I'm Brian North. The groundhog won't come out of his hole and give us a forecast for about 3 more hours, so I guess we'll just have to rely on less still until then to get you your forecast headed out the door this morning.
Hey, you know what I always say? Forget about Phil. You've got still.
Yeah, that's what we're afraid of. I know. Want to know how you get Les still all worked out? Hey, Les, is there going to be 6 more weeks of winter?
Of course there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter. There's always 6 more weeks of meteorological winter.
Phil might disagree. We'll find out in a couple of hours. All eyes will be on Gobbler's Knob later today. But until then, I guess we have you to pacify us until we get the real forecast from the rodent.
Yeah, let's see what the rodent has to prognosticate. And again, it's not just Phil. Phil's one of the famous ones. You've got other ones, even here in North Carolina. We got some groundhogs that we keep our eye on as far as their prognostication.
Being read this morning and all anticipating, well, at least 2 of us anticipating, Punxsutawney Phil popping out of his stump in Gobbler's Knob in a couple of hours. Less still, you know all about the hype there, but you don't seem to be buying in this morning.
Yeah, you know, one way or the other, we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter. We're literally, today is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. So no matter what Phil says, it's still technically going to be winter.
Thank you for waking up so early and consuming your news with us. Les still, he's on pins and needles today. He's competing with that gopher in Philadelphia. Is it Phil or is it still? We'll let you decide. Les is up first with his forecast.
Here we go. Warmest temperatures of the week as we see those temperatures surge into the 60s today. Don't get used to it. I don't care what Phil says. Colder air is coming in for us here as we go through the next several days.
Joining us here on News 12, I'm Mariah Davis.
I'm Brian North. What a big day we have on tap here with not only Groundhog Day, Wearing Red Day, Donnie Cox's birthday, which we find ironic that he's born on Groundhog's Day, and he's been battling the rodent
Tater Tots
for a long
Day.
day. National Tater Tot Day. We have so much to get to, but Les still really wants to get on his stump and get ahead of Phil before he pops out of his hole this morning.
That's right. I got science behind me.
Uh-oh.
Not
Is that good?
shadow conspiracy theories.
It's fighting time, though, with what's happening in Pennsylvania. Oh, the celebration is on. Thousands, close to 30,000 people, we're told, already there getting entertained at Gobbler's Knob. Somehow Phil sleeps through this, apparently, in his stump, in quite the slumber. And wait till you see all the great hatch. We're going to check in throughout the morning with all the entertainment.
Phil has great selective hearing.
Well, it is a party going on at Gobbler's Knob, and we will check on throughout the morning to when they finally pull him out of his slumber, sometime in the 7 o'clock hour. So you keep up with us, we'll keep up with Phil, and oh yeah, maybe still.
All right, 6:11. Well, don't worry about Phil up there in Punxsutawney. Let's get dressed with less here in eastern North Carolina. We are looking.
What is going right is the big celebration at Gobbler's Knob. The dignitaries now showing up in Pennsylvania to get a front row view of Punxsutawney Phil when he comes out of his stump a little bit later this morning, whether he'll forecast 6 more weeks of winter or an early spring. We'll have to find out. You don't have to wait quite so long, though, to find out what Les still is forecasting, but he's not wearing a cool red, white, and blue blazer or flag blazer, though.
I need that hat.
Other stories we're working on, including Phil. Oh, it's Phil versus Still this morning. Punxsutawney Phil, he gets the stage last. We are monitoring his progress at Gobbler's Knob and the prognostications of Les Still.
Live from WCTI 12, this is News 12 Now, this morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us here at News 12. I'm Mariah Davis.
I'm Brian North. The tail of the tape. Here he is, Les Still, standing at 6'3", 100-something pounds, ready to fight it out with Phil standing at, what, maybe a foot tall and furry and about 50 pounds of fluff. Groundhog's Day, but you have the stage first to give us your forecast, including another beautiful sunrise.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got science on my side. I've got science education on my side, and he's got tradition. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, there you go. There was your science and less still. Now let's get to the party at Gobbler's Knob in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. They have fireworks, Les. You didn't have fireworks. They
just sang the national anthem.
They have fireworks going on. Just sang the national anthem. We're still waiting for Puxatawney Phil to get hauled out of his stump. We think that'll happen within about an hour. If the fireworks don't wake him up, I'm not sure what will, but there's a big party going on in Puxatawney. About 30,000 people there in attendance. So we'll continue to check in on Still versus Phil. And of course, here's the live look at the big old party going on in Gobbler's Knob in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. Get your groove on. Is Phil dancing inside his stump there? Is he awake?
Probably not. He's probably mad.
I think he's got gopher earplugs. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if he was asleep with the governor there of Pennsylvania in the nice fluffy coat? Oh, Phil even has signs. Less still, I haven't seen anybody carrying around signs for you.
I've got the antidote to that. I got the truth.
We'll continue Still versus Phil throughout this morning.
642, let's talk about that famous rodent prognosticator up there in Pennsylvania. Again, we're waiting to see whether he sees a shadow or not. He really has not had a good record. Here's a scorecard about like over the last 10 years. Notice 2020 wasn't doing too bad, the forecast right. 2021 wasn't bad, but got a C- last year as far as his forecast was concerned. And look back in 2017, straight up F. He missed the forecast. So not 100% as far as the rodent prognostication is concerned. Either way, whether he sees a shadow or not, I'm forecasting 6 more weeks of winter.
Here's a live look from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where they're waiting on Phil to come out. He's probably mad right now because look at all those people and all that noise out there.
Well, they are certainly all-American style going on. They're getting the crowd fired up. We're within about 40 minutes, we believe, of Phil coming out of his stump, which is right behind those in the red, white, and blue outfits. It looks like they're hyping the crowd up if they need any more hype, 30,000 people that are there. Maybe you should put your hype behind Les Still. He's feeling a little neglected this morning, so less. He'll have his full forecast coming up. All right, that was Still. Let's check in on Phil, who's still in a slumber in the stump in Puxatawney and Gobbler's Knob, but they're trying to make some noise to wake him up. A crowd of about 30,000 decked out in everything from fuzzy hats to gopher-style themes. But that's the main hype man who does it every year. And once again, he's getting paid handsomely for one day of work like Santa Claus. Phil is getting ready to come out. Still, you have one last chance for retort.
My money's on
in case you didn't know, this is literally in the middle of central Pennsylvania, in the middle of the night. It's like a big tailgating party. There are 3 colleges. You've got Penn State, Clarion, and Lock Haven, all within an hour's drive of this here. So just imagine what you see take place at ECU and at NC State. This is in the middle of the night up there in central Pennsylvania. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's cold. They're having fun up there, though, now. Within the next half hour, we should see what that rodent has to say.
The fun will continue over on Fox. Join us there.
Well, warmest of the week as we get those temperatures into the 60s, and I don't care what that rodent in Pennsylvania says. We're going to be looking at 6 more weeks of winter as we see some of those winter temperatures return back to us here this weekend.
I'm Brian North. It is Groundhog's Day, and we are getting ready for Puxatawney Phil to come out of his stump in Gobbler's Knob in Pennsylvania. That'll be coming up here, we think, in the next half hour. But until he does, and we all focus in on his forecast, we're going to let Les Still take over for a few minutes.
Bring it.
Still versus Phil this morning. All right, Les, the floor is yours. This fight between Phil and Still reminds me of the movie Monsters, Inc., where you have Mike Wazowski who does all the science, and that's Les. And then there's the big party with Sully going on, and that's what's happening with Puxatawney Phil. As they're getting them hyped up, they've got the all-American suits on, they've got the phones out to record for posterity because everyone wants to be on cell phone video these days. 30,000 people hanging out at Gobbler's Knob in Puxatawney waiting for Phil in that stump right behind the guy in the red and white jacket. He'll make his appearance here, we think, within about a half hour, and then we'll find out whether he's predicting 6 more weeks of winter or an early spring?
Oh, I can't wait to see Phil's face when he comes out.
He's angry. That is a great shirt. Expect Phil, though, to be angry because there's been lots of loud music all morning long and dancing that luckily Phil doesn't have to see.
Here's a live look from Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where they are in just a few minutes about to pull Phil out.
You know it's
Inner circle to come.
Inner circle
You know
to
it's
come
getting
out.
serious now because the bow ties and the top hats are out.
Okay.
So we are getting really close, and you can see the sky starting to lighten up a little bit. So Phil, will he see his shadow or not? We're getting closer and closer. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, is Phil thriving, or will Les still be thriving?
The inner circle has arrived.
Yep.
They had the March of the Top Hats, as they call it.
March of the Top Hats. Hey, we missed it.
No. They'll be there for a while.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot to say.
This is a long, drawn-out process. We think it's about at least 10, 15 more minutes before they haul Phil out of his stump, but we are monitoring closely. We don't want to miss it, but we are obligated to take a break here. So as the Top Hat March continues and the crowd's still fired up, you can see the sky starting to lighten up as well. So we'll find out if Phil sees his shadow or not.
The inner circle knows what Phil says. 10 minutes from now, they'll tell it.
Oh, doesn't he like whisper in their ear or something?
Oh, it's groundhogese. They speak it. only the president speaks it.
Let's talk some coffees. All right, time now is 7:22. Let's get right to Gobbler's Knob. There's stuff happening. There's stuff happening. They've been knocking on Phil's door.
They're getting ready to pull him out.
And they're getting ready to pull out Les Still's favorite rodent prognosticator.
Here
now,
he
here's
comes.
the deal. We've got about 30 seconds here before we
hurry up
have
and
to
turn
go to
around.
commercial.
But they got to grab a hold of
Here
him.
we go.
There we go.
Hey!
There's the rodent prognosticator.
He's an angry
Yeah,
gopher.
he looks mad.
All right, we are by law. We have to go to commercial, but we'll be back in 2 minutes and we'll check in on what Phil has to say. Rodent prognosticator. All right, the real tale of the tape has now happened because Punxsutawney Phil has just said what, Les Still?
No shadow.
No shadow
That
in
means
Pennsylvania.
he is forecasting an early spring.
And you are forecasting
More weather.
It is really on now. They just read the proclamation seconds before we came back on the air. There's Phil looking calm because he did not see his shadow and is not scared and running back into his hole. There's a proclamation with all the fancy words they had to say that basically said he did not see his shadow.
Now they had to translate. They call it groundhogese up there. The inner circle. That's all the guys in the top hats up there.
He's reading it,
They
yeah.
go out into the woods before daylight and they sit there and they talk to Phil. Only the president can interpret what Phil says of the Groundhog Lodge, and he says no shadow. So according to Phil, again, we saw his scorecard here earlier. He doesn't bat anything all that great. But according to him, he's saying an early spring with no shadow.
All right, so there you have it. 30,000 people are at Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Just heard the news. There was a big roar of delight because everyone wants warmer weather, but will it actually happen? Les Still says no. Phil says yes. Now Phil's doing his photo ops.
An interview. He's got an interview.
Yep, he's doing an interview right now, apparently speaking his, what do we call it?
Groundhogese.
Groundhogese.
But see, only the inner circle can interpret it.
Look at his face. He looks pretty mad.
Well,
Come
they
on.
give him some like peanut butter, like they did with Mr. Ed to make his lips move,
Oh,
so
he's
it looks like
smelling
he's talking.
something.
But he is a camera hog as well.
There you go.
As a groundhog. All right, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Stick with us on Fox. I'll have the real forecast for here in Eastern North
We like
Carolina.
Phil's forecast better, but Les Still will have the colder forecast for us at least for a few days.
All right, we're going to be seeing the warmest of the week, but Phil the Groundhog has spoken. We'll let you know what he's forecasting coming up.
All right, breaking news. Let's get right to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where the revelry is on. People are happy because Punxsutawney Phil just hauled out of his stump and he proclaimed he did not see his shadow, so that means an early spring. And that makes a lot of people happy.
I'm not mad at that.
The party rages on
What does Les say about
in
that?
Pennsylvania. Well, all morning long, it's been Still versus Phil. Les has been throwing verbal grenades at Phil about how he's so inaccurate.
He's made us. Look, here's the scorecard right here. Take a look. He had an F back in 2017, and B's and C's. That's not passing in college. I'd be thrown out of Millersville if that was the case. Oh, well, I'm better than him. Just trust me on that. But yeah, you can see he did forecast no shadow after having 3 years in a row, 21, 22, and 23, of seeing his shadow. And I've got a feeling I'm going to be correct that we are going to have more of our winter here in eastern North Carolina and the eastern part of the United States before we officially get to the vernal equinox, which will occur around March 21st. We already starting to see
tidings on this Groundhog Day. An early spring is on the way.
There it is, straight from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, about 20 minutes ago. Phil did not see his shadow, so that means an early spring, according to him. Les still disagrees in this Still versus Phil feud we've been having all morning long.
He seems angry, but he's cute.
Les is angry. He's very angry about the Gopher getting more airtime.
If he was right, I'd give him credit for it. But he bats like, less than 500. So, I mean, he'd be on the bench in baseball.
Now, I did notice on the report card where you pointed out the F, I did see an A+ and an A on that report card.
And
too.
a B.
Yeah, but then it gets outweighed by the F on there. And to see the last 2 or 3 years, 3 years in a row, he did forecast correctly or close to correctly as far as winter continuing. He did not see his shadow this year for the first time since about 2020.